Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. I have a candle for you today from Homeworx, and it is the North Pole and looks like this. It's not quite as lovely as Harry Slatkin's usual photorealistic wraparounds, but it's not bad. I kind of like it, and I like the fact that it's all in the same like color scheme, and the label is kind of like set off a little bit. There are some weird label cutting issues here. I bought this from Macy's last Christmas. So not this Christmas, it would have been like 22, 23 that I bought this one. And it was like after, probably about this time, January, February, they ran like a big clearance on all of their like holiday candles. These were in it. And I think I got it for like 10 bucks, which I couldn't pass up. And at the time, I actually Fiona Wax and Facts had just dropped a little like Instagram like review on North Pole and liked it, and I liked what she had to say about it, and so I went ahead and got it. And I bought several different candles. One of them was the sweater weather one, various other ones. Of the ones I bought, and I liked all of them, to be honest, I thought North Pole was really a standout, so I was so glad to have gotten it. But then since it was past Christmas, I didn't get to burn it. I wanted to burn it this year, and I think I even put it in my like the ones that got away video, because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna burn this. But then when I smelled it, I was like, I could burn that in January. And here's why. Because the fragrance itself doesn't smell so Christmassy that you couldn't easily burn it in January. And I loved it burning it the last few weeks here in January. That said, the branding, given that it's the North Pole, kind of does lock it into like a December Christmassy kind of vibe. But if that doesn't bother you, I do think that the color scheme lends itself well to after Christmas burns, and so I would definitely recommend it for that. I did not think this was available anywhere, so I was about to do all the disclaimers and all the apologies about the fact that you can't really get this candle right now, and then I just looked right before I started recording this video, and it is at shop.com. I will make sure that it's not other places too, but it's on sale, I think, for like 18 bucks at Harry Slatkin's shop.com. Oh, give me just 1 second. Once again, I'm sitting here with my microphone, just not attached, which it doesn't do there. Okay, back. So it's at $18 at shop.com, which I would wait a little bit more for a better sale, but it is readily available, although I don't know that it came out with a great deal of fanfare this year. This one is a dreaded July 2022 pour. With the dreaded matte lid, and the performance was lacking in a lot of ways, but I think the fragrance is lovely, and so I want to talk about this candle for a couple reasons. Number one, because unfortunately Homeworx is just so variable right now. I mean, you don't know what the strength and performance of this particular pour is going to be. There's a real inconsistency and unreliability about Homeworx right now, which is bad. It's really, really bad. Candles that in the past have had great strength and throw now are coming down the pike. They're familiar favorites, they're returning favorites, and they just don't have the same kind of performance, which is not okay on any kind of level. They've gotten backlash. I think they are starting to kind of right the ship a little bit, but obviously nowhere near where they need to be. The positive part about inconsistency, though, is that when you get a candle that has really bad strength and throw, if you like the fragrance and you think the fragrance is great, then that means that it may come back inconsistently in a better strength and throw. And given the fact that Homeworx is trying to kind of right the ship here, it is very likely that many of these candles that you've had a poor experience with, I've had a bad experience with, won't come back and actually perform quite well in a year, in 2 years. So that's part of the reason why I really want to do a review of this, even for posterity, because North Pole is actually a lovely fragrance. And if it comes back in a stronger iteration, I can really highly recommend it. So just because it's not strong right now does not mean that it won't be next year, that it won't be the year after that. And the pour that is on the Homeworx website currently may not be this 22 pour, maybe a 2023 pour, in which case it may perform better than this particular one. 2022 is just a really horrible year for them. And so perhaps at least part of the performance strength and throw issues that I did have with this candle may be associated more with the year than with this particular fragrance, and time will tell going forward. The second reason I really wanted to review on this is because I scoured the internet and of course scoured YouTube for reviews on North Pole just to kind of get some frame of reference once I kind of had an idea of what the way I was experiencing it, and there were like no reviews on North Pole. Honestly, Fiona's blurb on Instagram was like one of the only reviews of North Pole. Everybody kind of like referenced it in passing, but it seemed like hardly anybody bought it or experienced it in full or wanted to speak to it. So that's another reason why I just feel it's important for somebody to have a dedicated review of this candle. Okay, preamble over. Let's talk about the notes. The fragrance notes listed here are icy Arctic air, pine needles, green holly, and winter fruits. And we're going to talk about whether that's representative or not. One little thing that I want to say, I've been saying in the videos up to this point that there are particular fragrances that sit well in this January, February period, and that are not escapist candles, i.e. ones like, you know, an escape to a desert climate or a tropical climate, which is a genre in and of itself and perfectly acceptable, if not kind of ideal for January, February. There are true January and February fragrances. It always surprises me when I hear reviewers or people say, I don't know what to burn in January. I think to myself, are you crazy? There is so much to burn in January and February. And honestly, I love the January and February candles even more sometimes than the holiday ones. First of all, because they don't feel that pressure of having to get through a million different things. And secondly, the holiday candles tend to be so narrow in terms of their genre, their profile, which is fine because it's a very short period of time. So it's not like it's like a quarter of the year where we're burning all the same candle, but you know, it's the usual spices, it's the usual coniferous tree, it's the usual like cookie and gourmand fragrances. And so what I really appreciate about January and February is that some of those like rustic and outdoorsy and cool weather candles can kind of come into their own without all of the traditional Christmas spices, the traditional Christmas marketing, etc. So those fragrances are, in case you just need a reminder, some citrus, minus the clove, minus the spices. Citrus is great for January and February, fresh new start. Citrus is in season. And for some people, it's an association of like, cleaning, frankly. I know that sounds horrible, but that goes toward kind of like brightening up your house, putting away the Christmas decorations, and having like kind of a new start, a fresh new start. So I would say citrus. The coniferous trees are still in because there's still like a very like rugged, outdoorsy kind of vibe. Very little is blooming in most places, at least here in like the North American region. Very little is blooming, and so the botanicals that are still like having their moment, still in bloom as it were, are those coniferous trees. And so it just feels perfect for this particular period. So coniferous trees, anything that has to do, especially by the way, woodsy goes with that. So like wood, especially if it's cut with like vanilla or marshmallow or something like that. Anything that has to do with cashmere, with coziness, a lot of sandalwood, even some linen notes, and that kind of dovetails nicely with like the fresh and clean too. You might be able to get kind of a nice laundry vibe too. That might actually feel great in January and February. And then this last genre, which I don't know that I mentioned and should have, it's the icy Arctic air, cold weather, peppermint mint kind of like vibe. And yes, we get some of that in the Christmas season with like candy cane, but I really think that you can kind of hang on to a mint into the January, February period where like the weather can sometimes be much colder than anything we experienced in November and December. It feels right. And what I was experiencing is that like I've been burning a lot of candles these last couple weeks that are cashmere, that are caramel, that are lavender, that are sandalwood, etc. And then I loved this candle and one that I'm going to review in a couple days, which is the Perfect Winter from Bath and Body Works. I loved mixing it up with this one because I just needed like a blast of peppermint cold air to kind of cut the like really uber kind of sweet and lugubrious or just kind of, I don't know what the right word is, the marshmallow fluff of those like cozy cashmere moments, which I love, but you kind of need something, you need a counterpart to it. And the mint feels so great. It's like a clarifying moment and it still feels so in keeping with the season. All right, close parentheses on that. That is what this candle did for me, and it's what this candle represents, which is another reason why it makes it a great January, February candle. For me and for my nose, the dominant note is, or at least to the upper note, is in fact mint, perhaps even a peppermint. But I'll tell you this, it's not sharp, it's not mentholated, and it's not particularly candy cane-ish, yeah? It's a very soft peppermint, and it's a peppermint that plays so nicely with all the other notes. I mean, Harry Slatkin has really beautifully married this peppermint with all of the other elements so that it is the top and probably the most biting element, the one that is going to carry throughout your house if you're lucky enough to get a candle that has strength and throw. But it also is linked. It's just blended so well with all the other notes so that it's a continuum up and into the peppermint as opposed to all these other things and then peppermint overwhelming the whole or standing somewhat independently of it. For me, it's peppermint, and there is something about this candle which almost seems floral to me, which actually makes sense because Harry Slatkin loves his florals and he does floral so well. He really does. It is a botanical element and a fairly authentic one. And yes, there is a little bit of like a coniferous tree. What does it say here? Pine needles. There is a little touch of that, but I would say that if you're here for the tree, you might be a little disappointed. This is not like frosted white pine where that was like, it was really just kind of celebrating coniferous with a lot of other things that kind of enhanced that tree. This is not a primarily tree candle. In fact, I would say it's primarily like I said, like a peppermint floral. And it's not like such a loud floral that it would come across necessarily or that you would categorize it as a floral candle. But the green element here, it has a sweetness to it. It has a fragility, and it just has all of the botanical elements of more of a floral. So he's saying green holly and winter fruits. I would imagine it's whatever that green holly note is that just feels a little bit floral. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it just works so well with the peppermint. And perhaps on paper it doesn't seem like those two should go together. They really do. It's a beautiful fragrance. It really is. It's not so biting that people who are even a little shy on mint, and I'm one of them, wouldn't, I think, really, really like this candle. It's beautiful. Like I said, it's beautiful for January. It just is. There's a softness to it, but also a clarity that I just really appreciate. It does lean maybe... Fiona, when she was talking about it, said that her first impression of it is that it leaned masculine and that it had something kind of musky about it. And so I just want to throw that out there. For me, I don't know that it did that, but it did perhaps with the biting of the peppermint and the nuance of tree, of pine needles behind it. And I don't know what the complex or the particular accord there of Arctic air is. It could have a little bit of musk in it. I totally overuse this word. Oh my gosh, I was watching a video, and like the last video I did, I think I used this word like, it would be, if it was a drinking game, you would be like, you'd be dead. This candle has an austerity to it. I'm sorry that I use that so much, and I'm going to work on it. I'm going to use more words. But there is an austerity here that some people might associate with masculine. I do think that upon burning it, it goes away. Fiona even said that upon burning it, that kind of went to the wayside. And I don't know that it's necessarily a masculine candle, especially with that kind of floral bloom that that really comes to the fore underneath the peppermint. But I just wanted to throw that out there too. If you do like tastes that lean a little bit more masculine, or you like only really, really uber sweet, uber feminine things, just be warned either way. Yeah? I really like it. The problem was that the strength and throw on it was just not good. And I mean, it's a 2022 pour. I kept it in the Hurricane the entire time. Thank God for that kind of peppermint note, because the peppermint notes should amplify, and in this case they did. Sometimes it was the only kind of whiff of what I got in the room, softened by the under nuance of floral. But the floral didn't often, it just wasn't strong enough to come forward the way that it should have. I would say that the strength and throw on this was somewhere between 4 and 5.5. Might have gotten up to a 6 at certain points. I can't say that it was unscented. I really can't. Now, mind you, that was in the Hurricane. So if you don't have a Hurricane, definitely think maybe a point lower than that, or a half a point lower than that. Toward the end, it really struggled. In fact, by the way, I burned this all the way down. It extinguished itself. So it burned gorgeous, no sooting. And to be honest, most of the Homeworx candles that I've burned over the last couple of years have had basically no sooting. They really have burned quite well in terms of the wicks, in terms of the wax. I'm very happy with that. It's really only the strength and throw that has the biggest issue. At about, I would say this point right in here, I was like, should I just put this away and go ahead and review it? Because I feel as though at that point, the wax pool had cleared several times to the bottom, you know, like in the pool, you can like see the bottom of the vessel. So I was convinced that like most of the fragrance had basically dissipated at that point, whatever was there, and it was kind of shy to begin with. So I almost did not burn it all the way down, but then I ended up burning it down. And I have to be honest, I've been burning some of those Yankee candles, which, spoiler alert, are virtually unscented. Oh my gosh, it hurts my heart so much. I'm still hoping for the best. I'm still like burning them, hoping that something changes. I had a Yankee candle burning in here at the same time as this, because I was like, oh well, for just the burn quality, I'll just like burn it down, but put another candle in the room so that it's not really, this one is virtually unscented. This other one will take over. As it turned out, the other one did not take over because it was a Yankee candle. And there were a couple times where I walked in the room and I was like, breathing deep, do I smell this Yankee candle? And it was like, I don't, but you know what? I am catching some peppermint from the Homeworx candle in the corner. Like, it seemed to kind of resurrect toward the end, and I was even getting a little something. That said, it wasn't a whole lot, you know. Obviously, in a smaller space, you're going to do better. But toward the end, it was kind of more in the 3 range, just as it was getting down in here. And that's with the hurricane. So no, the strength and throw was not where it should be. But I love this fragrance so much that I would definitely think about repurchasing one in the future. And I'm going to hope and pray, fingers crossed, that this was just a 2022 catastrophe, as there were so many that year, and that subsequent pours will be better. I really hope so. And I wonder, and I'm curious about the one that's on the website right now. And I'm hoping that it's a 2023 pour, and I'm hoping that it burns better. I might watch the website too. Like if there's a really, really good deal, I might buy one. I think it's a good fragrance. Unfortunately, with Harry Slatkin, the fragrances are not often the issue. He really is so good at fragrances, this one included, but so undermined by the performance. Makes me cry. It's so sad. But not undoable, right? I mean, that seems like a relatively easy thing to fix. It's not the same kind of problem as I don't have any imagination. I don't know what fragrance to do. All of my fragrances are mediocre. They all smell cheap. They all smell synthetic. Those are bigger problems, because even if you get the strength and throw where they're supposed to be, if you get the strength and throw where they're supposed to be, it's going to be even worse, because then we're going to smell as if in high definition how terrible your fragrance is. You know what I mean? So it makes me so sad. It's like when you have a great fragrance and then you just drop the ball at the end. You have something that is actually very hard and takes so much skill. Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it right at the end. Okay, that's what I got for you. I really highly recommend North Pole, especially if you kind of like mint fragrances, especially if you like more austere fragrances, especially if you like a beautiful winter conceptual. That's what this is. A beautiful winter conceptual that, frankly, especially with that floral note, sits much better in January and February than it would in November and December. By the way, winter fruits, yes, there might be some fruitiness. I'm not getting a whole lot of tartness as if from a currant, because that's what I would think with the winter fruits is like a currant. I'm not getting a whole lot of tartness, and perhaps it's the sweetness of the floral. But if there is a fruitiness here, I honestly just think it's kind of like that Harry Slatkin fruity floral. You know what I mean? Many of his florals just have that kind of fruity finish on it. That's kind of what this is. I wouldn't think necessarily, you're not going to be able to pick out or identify specific winter fruits. And the kind of fruity finish that his florals have, it tends to not be like a fruit that you would associate with the winter. It's kind of it's almost like a mango or peach or nectar. There's a certain kind of, and if you're with Harry, you know what that is. Maybe a little bit of berry. It's just, it kind of opens it up in a acidic kind of way. I can't explain. And it, again, blends so well with the florals that he uses. He's just really good at that. So there's a fruity finish to the floral, but I would say it's primarily more of a floral note with the tree, with the peppermint. That's what I've got for you. I don't know if this is positive or negative, but I hope it's realistic. I do recommend it with major caveats. Strength and throw needs to be improved, and hopefully it will be going forward. That's what I've got. I'll link whatever information I can find about it below, and I'll see you in the next one.